Thank you for joining us for this session on Key Ingredient to Inclusive Technology Design, Humanity. I'm Mary Pat McVeigh, a Senior Research and Knowledge Manager with Opportunity International. Joining me today is my colleague, Dr. William Durbin, Head of Programs and Partnerships for our Digital Innovations Group. And from VisionFund, we have Lisa Kuhn, VisionFund's Inclusive Knowledge Director, and Henrik Espensen, co-founder and chief technical officer of DreamStart Labs. Thank you so much to these experienced leaders for engaging us in this discussion. We'll be focusing on how centering people in the technology design process results in relevant, scalable, and impactful technology application. Rapidly emerging high-tech solutions are helping us to break through barriers to bringing financial inclusion to excluded populations living in poverty. In the span of just 1 year, generative AI has already helped us to rethink much of what we do as a planet. Enhanced machine learning is dramatically reducing processing times, and a focus on digital access can transform the way that low and middle income nations do business. In the years ahead, these advances and expanding digitization of analog techniques will grow at rapid paces, with the possibility for impact limited only to our own imaginations. The real question is, what will be the most effective, the most impactful interventions for our target clients? To determine this, we need input, human input. So let me start with you, Lisa and Henrik, to share about the DreamSave app, which digitizes savings group ledgers, saving women precious time, strengthening group solidarity, and helping groups link to formal finance. So Lisa, how did VisionFund end up pursuing savings group digitization?
Thanks, Mary. Our design process began with a 2018 assessment of savings groups in refugee receptor communities in West Nile region of Uganda. The assessment revealed that the refugee and the host savings groups face similar challenges. While they liked their savings groups and the way they functioned, they were, for the most part, working well. They were really struggling with insufficient funds in their group to adequately capitalize their businesses. They didn't have any alternative sources of funds because there were no financial service providers anywhere close to them. There were very high costs to travel elsewhere to access the financing. And most of them lacked, eligibility by most financial service provider criteria. From a financial service provider side, the primary challenges were the high cost of serving groups in remote areas and the high cost of obtaining information to evaluate the groups or their members' creditworthiness. So we decided to meet people where they were and build on what was working well. So savings groups were already successfully lending their own savings. They just needed a little bit more money. And so we decided that we would build on those familiar processes and the loan would go to the group cash box rather than individuals. So we would eliminate that need to have the time-intensive evaluations of individuals. And instead, that we needed to develop a method for evaluating the quality of the group itself. And for that, we needed to introduce technology. So initially, we were working with groups that still work with paper ledgers. We started by introducing mobile loan applications, mobile money for disbursements and repayment, mobile monitoring of compliance with protocols. And this was still fairly time intensive, requiring several visits to gather the information on the groups. And so digitization of the group's records was really a natural next step for us. Having digitized group records would allow the financial service provider to see which groups met the eligibility criteria before they even went to the field. And that's where we started working closely with DreamStart Labs on the DreamSave app.
Great. And so, Henrik, how did DreamStart Labs put people at the center in designing the DreamSave app?
Yeah, thanks, Mary Pat. Before I answer that directly, let me just give people a little bit of context as to what is it we have developed.
Sure.
So we have the DreamSave solution. There are two parts to it. There's an Android app that will digitize the group. So it's basically a digitized ledger at its core, but it runs the whole meeting. Then there's a web portal for the NGOs to see the data of their groups. And we call these two pieces together, we call that DreamSave. And we are working in roughly 30 countries with a bunch of NGOs. The app supports 22 languages, and we are approaching having 20,000 groups using the app overall. So that corresponds to roughly 400,000 plus individual members. So that's the context for actually trying to answer your question. So let's talk about how did we develop this system. We did we applied an approach that's known as rapid prototyping. Some call it fail fast. It's basically a scientific approach to developing a software product. It's not a new idea. It comes from a book by Eric Ries, the Lean Startup that he first published in 2011. The idea is you go through the following process here. You first define a hypothesis on how will some feature work, or how will some part of your product work, and a part of the hypothesis, difficult word, is also how will the users react to that.
Mm-hmm.
Then you build like a minimal prototype needed to test this hypothesis, and then you run an experiment and test it in the field with real users, analyze those results, and then you refine your hypothesis and keep iterating this. Sometimes you need to scrap the idea you had and come up with a completely new hypothesis. So the way it works, more specifically with DreamSave, is we made several trips to Tanzania, many trips, working with future real users from the very beginning. We brought along experts in human-centered design, and our first prototypes, when I say involving users early, I really mean early. The first prototypes were paper mock-ups. We did not have an app at all. Then we would put this in front of real users, right, and observe how they interact with the prototype, interview people, take lots of pictures, video, and then go back home, analyze all the data, usually scrap the first hypothesis we had, right, come up with a new one, and then rinse and repeat. This is actually very expensive, as you can imagine, with the travel, and it's slow, but it leads to an app that works in the end, so it's worth it. And whenever we have looked at evaluating whether some hypothesis is true or not, we hold it up against like 5 design principles. It needs to be simple, it needs to be intuitive. Those are kind of obvious, I guess, but we want a higher bar than that. It needs to be delightful. And to get to that level, we gamify things. We have celebrations when people meet certain achievements. It needs to be empowering. So you set these goals, for example, for how much you want to save, and we track them and you see how you're doing. And then finally, but most importantly, in some ways, it needs to be scalable, so you can reach many, many people. And if you don't meet just one of those criteria, then it's back to the drawing board and we start over. The good news is, in the end, when you then have some final version of a feature in the actual product, then we know that it works from day one because we developed it this way.
Wonderful. So, Lisa, maybe you can tell us some about how the use of DreamSave is shaping up in practice.
Sure. Thank you so much. Currently we're rolling out DreamSave in all the locations where we are offering our Cashbox loan product, which we call FAST, for Finance Accelerating Savings Group Transformation. And we'll be leveraging DreamSave in markets where VisionFund doesn't have a presence to attract and train other financial service providers to lend to the groups. This availability of data, of visibility into what's actually out there in terms of the savings group market and how they're performing is turning out to be quite attractive for other financial service providers as well. We're currently ourselves as VisionFund lending to over 11,000 groups in 10 countries, with that Cashbox loan being the fastest growing product in the portfolio of our MFIs. And we're really excited to, as we roll it out more and more, we're really excited to learn from the data that DreamSave provides to be able to develop data-driven early warning systems to detect when a particular group or a particular region is facing stress or problems, and to be able to come in with a supportive response. I'm in Zambia just this week, and we've been using group data to understand the impact of the drought and to try to design a recovery response. Although DreamSave hasn't yet been fully rolled out here, so we've had to do some more manual analysis, but what I've been able to appreciate through this process is that once DreamSave is fully rolled out here, we're going to be able to pull this kind of data together in a report in just a few minutes and to be able to actively monitor the situation.
Wow, that's fabulous. Thank you so much. Opportunity International is also helping savings groups to digitize using DreamSave, and I'm currently carrying out an evaluation in 6 countries. And the benefits to the group itself are becoming extremely relevant and evident in terms of time savings, the increased accuracy of the records. And people are saying this is giving them a lot more trust in the group, and they're saving more in the groups because of it. And I have to say, Hendrik, that the delight factor is also always mentioned. People like getting stars. They get little stars if they reach their goals. And sometimes if they reach a big goal, then they get a song. So they always mention this as well. So I think the delight factor is more important than I would have realized as kind of a techie person myself. I want to talk about this other innovation that we've been rolling out, which is a chatbot generative AI solution. And it's called Ulangizi, which means advisor in the Malawian language Chichewa, which is where we've piloted. And what Ulangizi is it's, like I said, it's a generative AI chatbot. And it's used to provide information and advice to farmers through Opportunity's community-based farmer advisors who use it on their smartphones, interfacing through WhatsApp. So, William, please, can you share with us Opportunity's human-centered design process and tell us about Ulangizi's progress so far?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mary Pat. And yes, we do like using DreamSave app. It's really helped our farmers. So Opportunity International, as you know, is a little over 50 years old. And over the years, we've served close to 250 million customers. And innovation has always been part of our journey. But we realize that with new technologies that are coming to the fore, we can have new ways of serving people and using technology to break down the barriers that even 5 years ago we couldn't do, and to serve people at lower costs. So a couple of years ago, we embarked on what we call a kind of an envisioning process. So focusing on our customers, and understanding them better through a human-centered design process. And in that process, we selected several personas, which we used to get a deeper understanding of our customers and how we can serve them, really using technology as a lens. And one of our key personas was a smallholder farmer named Faustina. And Faustina would be using the DreamSave app. But Faustina is part of our agri-finance program. And currently, we work in about 7 countries across Africa. And we partner with about 24 FSPs to provide capital and training to farmers. I think we've done that to close to about 400,000 farmers. And over the years, we've facilitated about $440 million worth of loans, and we reach about 1.24 million households. And Faustina is part of this. But despite this reach and impact, we still feel that we need to find new ways of understanding Faustina better. So a group of us went down to Malawi, very similar to how Henrik and co went down to Tanzania, just to try and understand what her needs were. And we went through a very similar process, and we just asked them questions, of what their main challenges are. And being a banker, I thought they would say, we need more loans. But they did say, look, what should I grow? It was some very basic questions, and it really struck us, why are you asking such as what we think is a basic question? But, over the years, Cyclone Freddy had come, had washed their crops away. The climate is changing right before their eyes. The rain patterns are changing. New diseases are coming up. So for them, what to plant, how to identify diseases, and when your plants are distressed, is actually quite critical, as important as going to get the loan. So we went through a very similar process with paper, just trying to figure out how we can get them to experience a way in which they can get this information. Then ChatGPT was launched not soon after, and we decided, hang on, let's just try this solution. Let's see if they will react to this. And we're all skeptical. We thought maybe they wouldn't. And it's amazing when we put it out there, they all jumped and they were all eagerly asking questions, and one person asked a question about some disease that she had, asked the chatbot responded, and she immediately said, when can I have this? Because if I had this information, my crops would not have died. And I know from technologists like Henrik, when you hear such an endorsement, that's your green light. So we went ahead and actually built this bot. We got authoritative sources from the agriculture, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. We put it into Chichewa, that's the local language, and then into WhatsApp, because that's then easily, it's easy for people to access. No new app or anything. And then we call it Ilongizi, as Mary has said. So now they could just ask questions and get responses. But we realized that the farmers don't have smartphones, so that was a challenge. So we have our farmer support agents. These are farmers that we train ourselves, have about 2,000 of them across our markets, and we provide them smartphones because they train farmers. So we said, hang on, let's use them as a human in the loop. And that's important for two reasons. One, we solve the problem of a lack of phones, because now they have the phone, they get the question from the farmer, and then they give the answer back to the farmer. So at least the farmer doesn't have a smartphone, at least they can use that of the farmer support agent. And secondly, it builds trust between the farmer support agent and the farmers. And it also builds their trust with technology. And it's interesting that for the groups that we are using DreamSave, so they have come to contact with some kind of technology. They are already using the phone to digitize their processes. When we added this on top, it was easy. They kind of got it because they were used to, doing things with the phone. So I think that, as we start providing digital solutions, as we add on, it gets easier and gets better. So we did a pilot about 3 months, 150 farmer support agents and government extension officers, and the results were very positive. Over 80% of their queries were answered, and they were really wanting to share it. I'm just in Ghana testing it, and they want to already start sharing the app and asking them to hold on. They also love this feature when they can take pictures of a crop or of a plant, and it tells them what the plant is and what sort of disease it has. So that's also a big plus. And at least for the extension officers, it's saving them time. But more importantly, it's saving them the embarrassment of saying that I don't know. Nobody wants to be asked a question and they say they don't know. The chatbot would always come up with some kind of answer. User costs are lower because we are using a WhatsApp platform. And now we are doing similar pilots in Ghana and in Kenya. And I think that, it's just so interesting and to see how they're embracing this technology to improve their lives.
Oh, fabulous. Thanks for sharing that, William. And, I had an experience around Ulangizi that was beautiful and touched my heart, and in Malawi in August. And you know how you go and visit a savings group, and the people are so welcoming, and the women are often singing songs when you arrive. And so, I'm listening to this song, and usually I have no idea what people are singing about, but I heard Ulangizi, Ulangizi, and the women had written a song about the app. So that's my new performance indicator. Your technology is successful if somebody writes a song about it, So this is all a lot of positive energy around tech, which is great because I think the possibilities are really there. But we also know there's a lot of risk involved as well, especially for first-time and less educated users. So, William, what have been some of the risks with opportunities technology adoption, and how have we been mitigating them?
Yeah, I think with AI, the biggest risk, or one of the main risks, is hallucination. So if you don't put in authentic material, it will just give you what it gets from the web. And this is agriculture. It's about people's livelihoods. You can't afford to give them wrong information. So we really took our time and we got sources from the Ministry of Agriculture. They are book. This is the book where all the Greek information is. And then we put it into our chatbot, through what we call a RAG model, retrieval augmented generation model. So it only takes from this source. So if you ask it, who is the president of Malawi, it will tell you, I don't know, but what do you want to know about a Greek? Many of our people were asking, how can I find a good husband or find a good wife? It will tell you, well, I can't help you with that. So that was so the source material is really important. The second thing is fraud and crime. I was at a conference earlier on this year, and cyber crime was sort of like a war going on. Anytime we introduce technology into these communities, somebody else comes up with finding negative ways of using it. And to do that, we are doing a lot of digital literacy. There again, our focus is how do they experience knowledge and learning. And Henrik talked about the music and that factor, and that's all important. How do they take in the learning? So that's really what we've done, videos and cartoons and stuff to explain complex things like data privacy and security. But we feel that we really need to do more and find new ways in which we can get people to experience knowledge, information, advice. It may not be just reading a book, or it may not even just be videos. There could be different ways in which people can use technology to transform their lives. So these are the two areas that we are that we've identified that we are combating.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks so much. And turning back to DreamSave and the issue of data privacy and the groups that we talked to, quite a number of them were very skeptical, or some of the members were very skeptical about adopting DreamSave in the beginning, thinking that it would cost them money for every transaction, that their money would disappear, that their identity would be stolen. I mean, I was impressed with the level of awareness that people had, but it turned into kind of fear. So I'm wondering, what are these some of the risks? What other kinds of risks have you encountered with DreamSave, and how have you been mitigating them?
That is for me, that question, I think.
Yeah.
Good. I don't want to steal anybody else's thunder. So
I think both of you have comments to make on this one, though.
Yeah, I'll be happy to comment on this.
Great.
So in this context of DreamSave, I would say the biggest risk is exactly what you're already talking about, Mary Pat, right? It's about the data sharing and people's personal data, how that's being used. And it's about avoiding that it's being used in a bad manner to exploit or take advantage of the end users. And as you pointed out already, this is always important, but it's especially important for our end users, because they are on average much more vulnerable. They're just not used to navigating in the digital world. So there are many things you can do about that. Let me talk about two of the things we are doing. The first thing is, well, who controls the data? That's really important. And who owns the data first, right? And DreamStart Labs does not. Our NGO partners also do not own the data. The end users own the data, and we put them in control. And the way that works fundamentally is that each user of the app needs to explicitly opt in to data sharing. If you're not opted in, if you didn't make that choice, then your data is anonymized. So that means your transactions are there, but you cannot identify the person who made that transaction. So you are anonymous. This is actually kind of counter-cultural. It's upside down compared to what usually happens, right, in the world in general. And we know how it works, right? Your data is shared unless you opt out. And actually, in many cases in the real world, you cannot opt out. And we are trying to do the exact opposite of that. The second issue that I think is worth mentioning here, it relates to the FSPs, financial service providers. So many of our NGO partners, Lisa and William have talked about this, work with FSPs, and they work with them to provide financial products to the savings group members. When a partner of DreamStart Labs wants to do that, then we will do an in-depth screening of those FSPs, just to do whatever we can to ensure that the FSP will behave in a manner that we consider ethical and beneficial to the savings groups, to the end users. This is, I would argue, highly countercultural. We all know the big platforms out there. So let's take X as an example, right? The former Twitter. They explicitly state that it's really not their problem what's being done on their platform. So if somebody encourages something that's bad for society, like how to commit crimes or whatever, then their stated position is that, well, that's just really none of our business, and there's nothing we can do. We are taking the exact opposite approach of that. So we are committed to do whatever we can, whatever is possible, to ensure that the use of our platform only enables things that are beneficial to the end users. And that also applies, by the way, to the next phase of DreamSafe's development. So right now we are working to create some general capabilities that will streamline this delivery of financial services to the savings groups, different offerings to them. And the first one we are doing is what Lisa talked about it earlier, is we are working with VisionFund to provide group level loans. And an offering like that and future offerings will be subjected to the same process. And that is happening now, that we will screen FSP providers very carefully and do everything that's within our power to make sure that everything that's offered is actually a real benefit to the users.
Mm-hmm. Great. And Lisa, do you want to add from your point of view about risk and risk management with the groups?
Yeah. Just really briefly, although in theory, the data that we're getting from DreamSave would allow us to make lending decisions remotely and perhaps even automatically, we're not going that route, at least not yet. Not only do we believe it's important to validate the data in the app, but we also believe it's really important to have a human in the equation still. Currently, we have field officers who train groups on financial literacy and particularly on managing debt. And only after we're confident that the whole group understands the risks and responsibilities do we call for a secret vote, which requires unanimous consent from all members to take the loan. And that's really for their protection. Could we imagine that someday this could all be done remotely via mobile phone-based education and voting? Yeah, maybe. But at this stage, with both the technology and the access to formal financial services being so new for this highly vulnerable population, we're not really sure that it's wise to make it too easy to take a loan just by clicking a few buttons. And even if the data were there to make the decision, fully automatically, should we do it? Maybe not at this stage. So we see that human relationship and support is still essential as the groups are taking these first steps into this digital world and this formal financial service world.
Great. Well, we have a comment and a question in the chat about one of the risks that our groups are also raising, which is how do we make sure this technology is there in the long run for clients, and like some of our savings groups that we work with are keeping paper books alongside DreamSave because they're worried that DreamSave might disappear. And some organizations think, well, we better develop our technology in-house and not use an external company so that we know that the app will be there. So maybe any of you could speak to this issue about the sustainability of the technology over time.
I can give my 2 cents on the topic. It's a great question and it's super important, right? And it's often forgotten. One of the most important factors when you engage with any technology company is it going to be around tomorrow? Because startups and we are burning through cash, right? So how can you know that? In our case, we are just super fortunate that VisionFund is going to be the owner of DreamStart Labs, the company, very soon, within a month or two, I hope. And that means that we have a solid financial backing. And so that is that the problem that the person in the audience is asking has absolutely applied to us in the past. We could have crashed, but we didn't. And with VisionFund, we won't. Because they have financial backing there, right? So, and at the same time, DreamStart Labs continues as a separate standalone company. So VisionFund is the owner, but we continue to operate completely independently of that, our own everything. So we are good on this point now, but in the past we weren't always, and that's how it goes.
Well, and from opportunity, go ahead, William.
I was just going to add a bit on that, because part of the, and I've put an answer in the chat, but it's how do you select whether to build or buy yourself? And I've said there that, you know, first you as the FSP or the bank, you've got to go through your own human-centered design. You've got to decide who you want to provide the solution for and what challenge are you actually providing for. You've got to do your homework. Then you can go out to market and see if there's a solution that does that. If there isn't, then yes, by all means, think about building. But if there is, then you could use that solution. But make sure that you are mission aligned. That's so important. So we as OI, we are using DreamStart Lab because how Henrik explained how they came up with the app is the same way we would have gone about it. You know, so they've already done the work that we would do and they are far ahead. So why would we go and build a similar app when we can use one that they've done? But the important thing is that we are mission aligned. Otherwise, it will not work. They will build, you know, otherwise we can't use their app if it's not built in that way, targeting the sort of person that we are also interested in. So yeah, I would say that you've got to figure it out yourself first, what you really want. Thank you.
Yeah, and what the client wants. And that's what this session has all been about. So you've wrapped it up perfectly, William. Thank you so much to all of you for sharing your experiences and to the audience for participating. If you want to learn more about these innovations, please take a look at the documents and links connected to this session description. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.